I'm building a Hobbit house into a New Zealand hillside that you won't even see from outside. Last time, the bones were up, but it still stuck out like a wooden box. Today, I have to turn this empty stone shell into something a hobbit would actually want to live in. After cutting and loading the sod with the tractor, I drove it all back to the build site. One piece at a time, I added the sod slices across the crown of the roof, just like it was a big green puzzle. These were super heavy, and this was my best back workout of the week. I have no idea how the roof is supporting this much weight. Now it's time to build the door. First, I laid out 18mm boards to the door's diameter and crossed a second layer over the top. Then I broke out the router and jig to make a perfectly circular cut. The result was so clean. That is a circle. Feel like I'm building King Arthur's round table right now. For the trim, I stacked 2 sheets of plywood and cut a giant circle, 10 centimeters wider than the door. That wraps perfectly around the opening. Then I did the same for the windows, but only 6 centimeters thick instead of 10. For the front wall, I wanted to keep the wood as natural as possible, so I sanded it down and applied a natural wood oil with a brush. For the trim, I used a much darker stain and poly to get that mahogany look. As for the door, I went with walnut, which turned out way more orange than I expected. So I mixed a darker stain over top, and in some weird miracle, ended up with a weathered look way cooler than the original. I screwed the door trim pieces on top of each other, then smaller circles around each window. Now for the door hardware. With the door in place, I put a screw into every single hole in the hinges, and to my absolute delight, it worked perfectly. Then I added a handle and latch. Simple, but got the job done. Then came the finishing touches. A stone path out front, a cozy bed tucked along the back wall, and a wood stove crackling away in the corner to keep things warm at night. Plus this absolute masterpiece, a Hobbit version of me that gets creepier the longer I look. And just like that, this hillside became the most whimsical little cabin, straight out of a fantasy novel.